Some people roll right from dry January into sober February. What about an entire year that's sober-ish? Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm your host, Julie Holton. Enough with the play on words. Today's startup is in fact called Soberish. Let's get right to our expert, a serial entrepreneur and tech startup founder who said she wouldn't do it again. And yet here we are. Kim Gamez, welcome to the show.
Hey, Julie, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, Kim. I love your passion for the grind, which is why here we are doing this whole startup thing all over again. I'm excited to dive into some questions about Soberish. But first, I really want to set the scene with more of your background for our audience. So with your last venture, you were featured on the Today Show and in Forbes for creating a marketplace that amassed 1 million users in just 24 months. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so my entrepreneurship journey really started like right out of high school. I took the money that I made from my high school graduation party, and my parents are real estate investors. And my dad was like, "Oh my gosh, this could be like a great first investment for you. You could put this as a down payment." So I say all this because I don't know another way. I only know of kind of really thinking outside of the box. From there, I met my husband. We got married, had a business or started a business and had a baby all when I was 20. And so we had that business for like 17 years. And again, I knew nothing about business, but I learned how to talk to my customer. I know now that's all called like customer discovery, but learned about their pain points, learned about opportunities, learned how to hustle and do all of the marketing just because I didn't know any better. So I took all of that, and we had a couple of restaurants and continued to invest in real estate. But it was in 2016, I was helping my niece plan her quinceañera. And because my husband's from Mexico, and it's when a girl turns 15, and I was shocked that there was like no resources online. And so I went and I was like, I wonder if I could like maybe launch a website or an app or something to help these families plan. Did a little bit of market research, realized that there was, over like 500,000 of these events happening every year. The average quinceañera was like $20,000. And I was like, holy crap, this is a huge market. And I thought maybe because I had watched enough Shark Tank that I could pitch the event to investors, and that maybe I could put a team together to create this app. And so we did. We launched in 2017, and grew from an idea to over 1 million users in the first couple of years, 3 million users by the time we ended up getting acquired last year by David's Bridal. So that's a little bit about my backstory.
Well, and I love that because you say, you didn't know anything about business when you started, but really what you didn't know were all the things not to do, or all the things that we get hung up on once we start to learn a little bit about business. You just looked at, the situation as it was and created what you needed to, the systems you needed to. And clearly it's going well for you. I met you recently at a pitch competition. You were pitching, I was judging, and I remember you joking because it resonates so much with me. You had joked that after that last startup, you maybe weren't going to do it again. And then, of course, here we are. So tell us about Soberish. Where did this idea come from? This idea that you just couldn't quite say no to?
So, growing that last startup, I would go home, not necessarily every day, but a couple times a week and definitely on the weekends. And I would have a glass of wine or a cocktail to take the edge off. And, after the acquisition of that company, I couldn't just go home and drink all day. Well, you can't do that. And I'm not, a perky pigeon anymore. I can't throw back tequila like I could before. Also, my mom, who struggles with alcohol, recently moved in with us. And so I started exploring non-alcoholic alternatives, but I still wanted that buzz, but without the booze, and found some different products that really did what they said. They gave me a buzz without the booze. So I started reviewing them, and I love all things social media. And so I started recording. My mom and I would record ourselves trying these drinks, and a couple of videos went viral. Brands started reaching out for us to try the drinks and give our review. And I threw up a landing page just to see how many people were actually going to my video, because I'm a nerd, going to my video, clicking on it and purchasing. And in one short month, I was able to generate over $60,000 in sales for these brands. And it was like, hold up, this is real money. This isn't just like a couple $100. This is real money. And so again, looking just like with the last step, I saw a big sober curious movement that a lot of people were playing with their sobriety. And it wasn't necessarily that they had a bad relationship with alcohol, but it's just some people don't want to drink for lots of reasons. So I was looking for a solution where I could find, buy, and review these products, and there really wasn't one out there. And so that's where I was like, something like this needs to happen. And then I was toying around with a name and I'm like, it's like sober, but not really. That's just too boring. It's like sober-ish. And then, me, I was like, go daddy, Soberish available. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, marketing pro tip, always make sure the domain is available, right?
Right.
Okay, so tell us then, so that evolved. What exactly is Soberish? How do you describe it to your market?
Yeah. So Soberish is an e-commerce platform where we pair both great content and communities with products and brands that deliver a buzz. So think like Amazon for all things for a sober, curious community. So you can go and find non-alcoholic wines or hemp-derived beverages, ready to drink in cans, to mushroom elixirs and all kinds of things. And then we also, though, because there was so much stigma in the market, not necessarily for the sober market, but for on the cannabis side of the market for hemp-derived products, which are federally legal, there's still a lot of stigma. And so there was a lot of people who wanted to maybe get into this space, but were really apprehensive, like they didn't know either one how, or they were maybe like embarrassed to ask. And so I really just tried to, I don't want to say dumbify things, but keep it in really simple, approachable language at Soberish, that it's just like you and I are talking, like, hey girl, let me explain this to you. It's this, this, and this. Like trying to keep it super easy and feel like I can be, your BFF to go to online.
Okay, so you got your start for this company on TikTok. Tell us about that. Like, how did that evolve? How do you feel that real conversation with real people through social media has helped to launch this?
I mean, at first, because I have kids. I'm a mother of 5. I have teenagers, and I wasn't going to, and I know on social media you can get flagged or banned for saying like all of the bad cannabis words like weed or pot or anything. And so I was just really like talking authentically. Like I would say like, oh, I've never played with the giggle grass. In my head, that sounded normal. Yeah, everyone else was like, what did she just say? And I'm like, what, you don't call it the giggle grass? Like I get the giggles, it's the giggle grass. And so just really trying to keep things real. I didn't edit out like bloopers or like me not knowing what I was talking about. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's go find an expert. And then I'd go find an expert to talk on said topic. I just, again, thinking about keeping it real on social media. Also with that first video went viral, I talked to a couple other brands that I was friendly with. And I said, so how did you grow off of your viral video? And they gave me some tips, like respond with a video and make sure you post like 3 times a day, about the same kind of topic. And so all of that really helped grow. But then I got flagged for my 3rd time and TikTok banned that account. So I'm back working it. I'm back at now 1,000 followers. I was up to 50,000 before, but it's just a creative place to play.
And note to self about we'll do a separate marketing connections video on that aspect of it. What happens when you have everything tied into one channel and then you get banned like you did. Back to Soberish. So building a community is obviously at the core of what you're doing here. So how do you engage with your audience? Is it all through TikTok and social media? How are you building that community?
Well, it's not all through just TikTok. I've learned since that account went down that I have to play in all of the areas. And so I'm very active on Instagram, which then feeds, if you're familiar, like your accounts can feed over to Facebook. And then also on LinkedIn. I mean, there's plenty of professional women like us that maybe want to swap out their wine for a different type of beverage once a week. And so just making it acceptable. And it's maybe not the type of product that you'd see on LinkedIn, but they're definitely the customer that is looking for something like Soberish.
Okay, so I saw a recent post. We were just talking off camera before we started the interview. Saw a recent post of yours on LinkedIn that really caught my attention because working with a lot of startups, we often hear this kind of push-pull between seeking funding or not seeking funding. And I know that in your past venture, you raised nearly $2.5 million in external funding when you wanted to expand nationwide. What are your thoughts on funding? Will you be seeking funding for Soberish? How are you feeling?
I know you joked at the beginning that I swore I'd never do this again, and I did. I said, I will never start another startup. I have this great job at Michigan State University now in entrepreneurship and innovation, but I have the entrepreneurship bug. So I put a clause in that because I know I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur, I feel like all my life, that if I did ever have another company, I would not raise outside capital because I was flying around the country, like speaking to investors, just like the whole, like if anybody's not familiar with it, it's not like Shark Tank. You're not like in front of a panel, but you are maybe sometimes at like in a conference room or you're on a Zoom call and they ask you the tough questions similar to on the show. And I would be doing that like every other week.
Yeah.
And then when I was not flying and meeting these investors, I was following up. I was creating spreadsheets. I was creating a new pitch deck. I was creating an executive summary. I was updating all of these things for the investors. And what was I not doing? Running my company. And so even though, yes, the capital that I received from the investors was why we had, over 3 million users by the time we were acquired, I also did not, if I would have spent more time on the company itself, maybe we wouldn't have struggled as hard as we did during COVID, during the pandemic. And I don't know, it's like in my post, it was like to do or not to do, as far as to raise money. It's just a balance. So right now I'm not going to, we're just going to bootstrap like we were planning on. But then a strategic investor had come through with a network, with a manufacturing partner, with, all these other things they could bring to the table. So I don't know. It's up to every founder to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, and I love that you're asking that question. And I love that you actually even polled your community to see what their thoughts are on it. Because, and you through Spartan Innovations, working with a lot of startup founders who are new to the game and might kind of be pushed in one direction or another. And like you said, really figuring out what the right fit is. So I'll be very interested in watching your journey and seeing where you land with that. Looking to the future, looking to where you are right now, what are some current things that you're working on with Soberish? What are you moving towards? What's in the plan?
So we've already launched the marketplace. So we've partnered up with 16 brand partners that have products that deliver a buzz, or they're non-alcoholic alternatives for mocktails and what have you. But I saw a need when I was on my sober journey and I'd go out to eat, for example, with my husband, and he'd have his, vodka soda or whatever he was drinking, and I'd order a mocktail or a lemonade. I'm like, well, this is boring. I still wanted like a buzz. Like, why did I have to only have that at home but not when I went out? And so I thought, like, I wish I could like add something to this. Like, I don't know if it's like, I don't know what. I wish I could add that same feeling into this drink. That's how it all started. So then I kind of came up with like, oh, well, maybe I can do this, that, or the other. Talk to some of the bigger brands about what their struggles were. And they said that shipping was a big struggle because they were literally shipping water. So I was like, well, maybe what if we take the water out of the product and then the person can add the water? And I'm like, what does that look like? I ended up coming up with a dropper. So it's our Soberish drops. It's a hemp-derived flavorless blend that you can it's basically like water you put into your drink, and it mixes right in with whatever you're drinking, and it gets that nice wine-like buzz that I loved from these other products. So really excited that those just launched, seeing great success there. And it's really innovative in the space. And so I'm excited to see where those go. But overall, I'm really excited for Soberish as a whole, as a marketplace, so we can kind of help our guest or our customer wherever they're at in their Soberish journey.
Okay, so that's a huge milestone to go from having these different brand partners and showcasing them in your marketplace to developing your own line of products. What went into creating that?
Oh gosh, a lot, because I know nothing about this space. Remember, I came, from restaurants, banquet, real estate, tech. And it was like, I know nothing about a consumer packaged good, like for one, let alone in the hemp space. And so again, just like my other companies, learning from the best in the business. So I just didn't want to partner with anyone. I figured out who had the best product and then learned who their manufacturer was, finagled my way, hustled my way to an introduction to that manufacturer, talked up my background like you did at the beginning of this podcast, like, hey, I've been on Forbes, I've been all this thing. And they're like, they took my call and I said, so I want to do this thing. And they were so excited about it that they said, we'll help you develop it. So, but that was the biggest thing. They're like, well, how many bottles? How many do you want to jump off with? And I'm like, I don't know, like 50. And they were like, I go, and then I was like, no, I'm not doing this to run like 50 bottles. So we ordered like 1,500 bottles, and yeah, it's been crazy though, from like the labeling to like the brand to how we describe what it is. I mean, it's just been like so much learning. But at the same time, I keep going back to my customers and like what resonates with the customers. And that's how we describe our product. The look that we're going for, we understand that our customers are very afraid of the neon pot leaf. So we wanted to do something that was like completely opposite of that. So there's just so many things, and we're still learning. Even though we're bootstrapping, like I'm taking advantage of all of the like grant opportunities in the state of Michigan, like the BAF grants.
Yeah.
You want me to say something? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Kim. So as you know, we talk about funding and bootstrapping. I think a key component of bootstrapping can be tapping into alternative funding methods where you're still in control of how you're running the company without investors. But say, for instance, grant opportunities. Are you looking into any alternative ways of funding?
Yeah, in our beautiful state, I've actually found out that this doesn't. I assumed that other states did this, but Michigan, we're a rare breed. The state has these local smart zones, and a startup can apply for BAF funding, which is business accelerator funds. If you're in a high growth tech focused startup. And so it's up to $50,000 in a grant. You have to hit certain milestones to get there. But I've applied and been granted my first $20,000, and that was used for like my trademark and some different marketing things. And then, I mean, I'm out there hustling and pitching at every single pitch competition that is known to man, because again, typically that is non-dilutive funds. Recently won the $1,000 at the Lansing New Tech pitch event. And so, yeah, I'm just out there trying to find all the additional funding. So I don't necessarily have to pitch to investors, but there are so many opportunities out there.
Yeah, and if you're watching and you're in Michigan, we will link to the Smart Zone. We'll link to some information. Depending on where you live, different zip codes have different access to different funding grants. I know here in the greater Lansing region, we've got a number of brand new opportunities coming up. So I'll link to some of our resource partners there. Kim, I'm curious, any words of aspiration, any thoughts for an aspiring entrepreneur who is looking to figure out where to start with their startup idea?
So if they have an idea, there's plenty of accelerators. I mean, at my last startup, I was part of Spark in Ann Arbor, which is, the local accelerator. They offered a boot camp to really make sure that you, at the end of the boot camp, if you still had a good idea, then that was great. 90% of the companies dropped out in the middle of the boot camp. I went through the Desai Accelerator in Ann Arbor. I now help with the Conquer Accelerator in Lansing. And it's not just in Lansing, that's Grand Rapids, Detroit, kind of statewide. So if you are in Michigan and you have a tech accelerator, hit up Spartan Innovations, the MSU Research Foundation. They can pair you up with a mentor and resources anywhere in the state. Don't spend a ton of money until you've done a ton of customer discovery. I mean, for me anyway, I use social media to validate my idea. All it cost me was my pride. Honestly, my kids were like, "Really, Mom, you're doing another video?" I'm like, "I know, but I have to see
that
what
might be a win though." If your kids don't like you, you're doing something right. At least that's what I tell myself.
And then all their little teenage friends are like, "Oh, Mrs. Gamez, I saw your TikTok." I'm like, don't, just swipe up or left or whatever you do. Don't. Yeah, but just do it. All I can say is someone else will come up with your idea and you're going to say, "That was my idea," but guess what? They did it. So just get out of your comfort zone, ask the questions, take that little bit of risk, whether it's a little bit of money or your time to develop whatever you're doing, but do it. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? You can fail, but at least you said you tried. And if you don't do anything, you didn't even try. So.
Oh, Kim, thanks for being on the show today. Kim Gamez of Soberish. You can learn more at soberish.com. We will link to that in the show notes. You can hear more stories from founders like Kim over in our Startup Connections segment. And be sure to subscribe to Expert Connections so you don't miss a thing. Kim, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.